You've always been the smart one, the kid who got it before the teacher finished the sentence, the friend people call when they need something explained, and the one in every meeting who can see 3 moves ahead while everyone else is still arguing about the first. And you've been right, quietly, repeatedly, almost annoyingly right. You saw that company was overvalued before it cratered, spotted the trend a year before it hit, and had the exact idea that someone else built into a business and sold for millions. And here's the part that keeps you up at night. You're still not rich. You watch people who are, honestly, not as sharp as you sail right past. Bolder people, louder people, people who were wrong half the time and bet anyway. You told yourself being right was the hard part, and that being rewarded would follow on its own. It didn't. If you've ever been the smartest person in the room and quietly the poorest, this video is for you. Researchers who study organizations have a name for part of what you're feeling, the knowing-doing gap, the chasm between what people know they should do and what they actually do. But there's a sharper version hiding underneath it, and it's the one that quietly bankrupts clever people, insight without exposure. Being right by itself pays nothing. The world does not pay you for being correct. It pays you for holding a position. Knowledge is not leverage. A bet is leverage, and an opinion you never acted on isn't foresight. It's just a story you get to tell later about money you didn't make. Your intelligence is often the very thing standing in your way. You can see every reason a bet might fail, construct an airtight case against acting, and wait for a certainty that never arrives while calling your hesitation prudence. Around the early 500s BCE, in the Greek city of Miletus, lived a man named Thales, the figure Aristotle would later name as the first philosopher in the Western tradition. Thales is said to have predicted a solar eclipse in 585 BCE, an event that reportedly froze a war mid-battle when both armies read the sudden darkness as an omen and put down their weapons. Thales tried to explain the universe without reaching for the gods, arguing that all things ultimately came from a single substance, water. He worked out how to measure the height of the pyramids from the length of their shadow, and sat first on every list of the 7 sages of Greece, and people mocked him for being poor. There's a famous story, Plato tells a version of it, of Thales walking at night with his eyes fixed on the stars, so absorbed in the heavens that he stepped straight into a well. A servant girl watching him laughed. Here was a man so desperate to understand the sky that he couldn't see the ground beneath his own feet. That was the reputation of the thinker, head in the clouds, useless in the world, and the sharpest version of the insult was always about money. If you're so wise, people said, why aren't you rich? Your philosophy clearly isn't worth anything. Thales got tired of hearing it, so according to Aristotle, he decided to answer them not with an argument but with a demonstration. Using his skill in reading the stars and the seasons, Thales concluded that the coming year would bring an enormous olive harvest. It was still deep in winter, when olives were the last thing on anyone's mind and the presses used to crush them sat idle and cheap. Quietly, with only a small amount of money, he went around and put deposits on every olive press in Miletus and on the island of Chios. Nobody bid against him because it was winter and there was no demand. He locked up the entire regional supply of olive presses for next to nothing. Then the harvest came, exactly as he had predicted. Suddenly every farmer for miles needed a press all at once, inside the same narrow window, and every single press was already spoken for by Thales. Thales let them out at whatever rate he pleased, and the money poured in. He built a fortune in a matter of weeks. He had bought what economists now recognize as one of the earliest recorded options contracts, the right to use the presses at a price locked in advance. If he had been wrong about the harvest, he would have lost only those small deposits, a bounded, survivable downside. Because he was right, the upside was nearly uncapped, tiny, defined risk, and enormous, open-ended reward. The whole thing hinged on one piece of insight nobody else had bothered to act on. The lesson Aristotle draws from it is the line worth carving into your desk. A philosopher can be rich whenever he pleases. Wealth simply isn't what he's chasing. Thales proved that his wisdom could be turned into money on command, then made the fortune to settle the argument, and went straight back to the stars. Here's why this isn't just a clever anecdote. It's a blueprint for anyone tired of being right and broke at the same time. First, being right is worthless without a position. Your mental ledger of correct calls has a cash value of exactly 0. The market does not reward the person who saw it coming. It rewards the person who had exposure when it arrived. From now on, treat "I was right" as the setup, never the payoff. The only question that scores is, what did you own when it happened? Second, structure the bet, so the downside is bounded and the upside is open. You do not need to bet the house, and you should not. You need bets where the most you can lose is small and survivable, while the most you can win is large and uncapped. Being wrong 9 times costs 9 deposits. Being right once buys the harvest. Third, the edge lives in the off-season. By the time everyone agrees with you, the price already reflects it, and the asymmetry is gone. The money is made when you're early, alone, and slightly embarrassed to be holding the position. If you need the crowd to validate a bet before you'll place it, you'll always arrive after the edge is spent. Fourth, prove your "I could if I wanted to" is real. A lot of smart people comfort themselves with "I could get rich, I just choose not to," and they've never once tested it. Thales earned that line. He ran the play, made the money, and then walked away. Here's the thing the servant girl laughing at the well never understood. Intelligence that never takes a position isn't wisdom. It's expensive entertainment you perform for yourself. You already have the rare part. Seeing clearly is the thing most people simply cannot do, and you can. But a view of the future you never back with anything is worth precisely what Thales's critics believed his philosophy was worth: nothing they could see. The person who has never once bet on their own insight doesn't actually know whether they're brilliant or just comfortable. Betting is how you find out, and the beautiful thing about an asymmetric bet is that finding out is cheap. You can afford to be wrong. What you cannot afford is to reach the end of a long, sharp life, having never learned whether you were right, because you never once put anything on the line to see. So take one bet on something you genuinely understand better than the market does. Size it so being wrong barely stings, then let being right do what it did for a philosopher in winter, standing alone in a yard full of idle olive presses and about to be proven completely correct. If you're the smartest person in your room and quietly the poorest, hear this clearly. That gap isn't fate, it's an unplaced bet. Be like Thales, not greedy, but unwilling to let "I'm broke" stand in for "I couldn't." Prove, at least once, that your insight can cross the gap into the real world and come back carrying something. Then choose whatever game you actually want to play, from a position of proof rather than excuse, because being right was never the hard part for you. Betting on it is. If this reframed how you think about your own mind, subscribe. There's a lot more history with this kind of edge coming.